Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Really appreciate it. Even though it's our first one, we're kind of jump in and talk about things that are really geared towards people who are somewhat familiar with SeaView, but maybe you've missed a few functions or data types, or there's certain aspects of the software that we can introduce you to that you haven't been familiarized with before. We'll start off with this one today, which is about some tips and tricks about SeaView you might not know. It's somewhat geared towards the west coast of the U.S. and a little bit towards the commercial albacore fishermen, just because we know y'all are starting up pretty soon. But what I'll be talking about, at least, and probably what Ron will be talking about as well, really it can be used by sport fishermen, commercial, it doesn't really matter. So we'll do that. With that, let's get going here. It's cloudy. That's my first topic, is because it's one of the biggest questions we get, especially now, especially on the west coast of the US and Canada. It's a cloudy time of year. So I'll talk about what products to use, both sea surface temperature, but also all sorts of other stuff. I will get a little bit into our ocean currents. We have a new set of ocean currents, which I want to talk about, but I'll talk about all the different types because I get those questions a lot too. What's the difference between them and so forth. And then I'll go into the types of weather information we provide. Again, probably an underutilized data set by our customers. And then we'll move on from there to some software functions. We'll talk about sea surface temperature to start with and what our options are. I'm going to use yesterday's composites just because they're a little bit more relevant to what I want to talk about as far as sea surface temperature composites. So I'm going to download all these products here and we're going to put them on the screen. I'm going to tile them. And this is one of those basic functions that, surprisingly enough, probably a lot of people use, but we find out that people just don't know they can do this. And it's window and tile horizontal or vertically, but it'll put all my different data products on the screen. I'll download one more. I will go over this little tool as well, because it's, strangely enough, it should be something everybody uses, but it's not. And so I'll get into this a little bit deeper later. I'm going to put a rainbow color enhancement on this one. And here's our fun clouds that we love to hate. And so what are our alternatives? We have several alternatives that can help you see the general patterns, especially when it's cloudy, and I'm going to go through them. So this I can send to anybody who wants it. But I send this out to people quite a bit, and it basically runs down the different products, and I'll show them in SeaView in a minute, from kind of most accurate to least accurate, but the ones that are also the most cloud-free that will help you during these cloudy time periods. We start with the single satellite overpass. That's that one I showed you a little bit ago that was cloudy. The next best one to choose is the one-day composite. When it's pretty clear, it's a very good data set. It's from the U.S. Navy. They've really ramped up their accuracy and their resolution, so those data are getting better and better as we speak. Next down the list is the 3-day composite. Number 4 and 5 is kind of a toss-up between the microwave infrared fusion and the HiCom model cloud-free products. And then the last two are also kind of tied for the least accurate, but they can provide some information during times when it's just super cloudy. But really, the best cloud-free choices are 4 and 5. Let's start with that 1-day composite. That's this one over here. That's your first choice when it's cloudy. You will see sometimes some artifacts in it because it is a composite. You'll see a little bit of this kind of speckling sometimes, but that's because of diurnal changes in sea surface temperature from day to night, and it takes in 24 hours worth of data. From there, we go to the 3-day composite, a little bit clearer, and then that's when we get into the cloud-free products. Now, I'll talk about this old guy in a second. This is, and I'll put a rainbow color enhancement on it. I'm going to load a preset enhancement file. I'll talk about that too. So this is the cloud-free HiCom model sea surface temperature data set. It's pretty decent for a cloud-free data set. We found that it's pretty accurate, and I'm going to show it to you a little bit later in relation to the 50-meter subsurface temperature. As far as cloud-free goes, this is definitely going to show you the general patterns. We're going to put two side by side here, and these are one of those things that if you're not too bad at windows, you can always move all these SeaView windows around and show things next to each other. Remember, in SeaView, the Active window is the one you always click on the top button, the top window bar here. The general patterns are still quite the same, even though there's much more detail in the sea surface, in the composite image as opposed to the HiCom, but still a pretty good bet. The next ones on the list are the microwave. The interesting thing about the microwave, which you probably know, is it is about the only sensor that literally is measuring the sea surface temperature through the clouds. And that is really important in the sense that you're looking at real data at this point. Another data set that is very useful during cloudy periods is our subsurface temperature. Let's take a look at what we offer in regards to subsurface temperature. We'll download the 100 meter, 150 meter, 200 meter, and the 50 meter images. We'll display them all on the screen at once. And what we'll do is we'll put the same enhancement on each of them so you can see the temperature, particular depth, but we'll make them all the same. So at 200 meters, we can look at our coldest temperature being about 40, 43. Shallow depth, our warmest temperatures, about 57. So we'll see if we can stretch these, save these settings. We'll call it SBST. And now we'll load SBST on for every image. What we're going to do here is we're going to save a consistent temperature enhancement that we can apply to all the images. I will start with the 50 meter and go from about 40 degrees to the high of 58 degrees. I'm going to save this as SBST and then I'll load that on all the other images. So it gives you a real good idea of the real change in temperature as you go down in depth. As you can see, it's warm up here, 58 degrees at 50 meters. But then once you get to 200 meters, it's 48 degrees. So it drops 10 degrees. And you can see the big difference. For this part of the world in Oregon, I tend to use 50 and 100 meters. And so you can see, and you can compare it to the surface temperatures as well. And if there's an edge that you see at depth, most likely that is a deep frontal break or a water mass boundary or convergence zone, whatever you want to call it, if it's showing up on the subsurface data as well as the surface data. But these are also very good to use to give you a general idea of the conditions, especially subsurface, obviously, during cloudy periods. I just wanted to make one thing pretty clear. In the new version of SeaView, what you really want to use is this one right here. And what I've done is I've deselected all of my list, but then I check SSH anomaly from NOAA. The NOAA sea surface height anomaly is better than straight sea surface height. If we look at this, if I download the list, here's one from yesterday. There's also something called sea height from HiCom. Sea surface height anomaly is the one you want to choose. And that's because there's two versions of sea surface height. There's sea surface height, which is measured just straight height in relation to what's called a geoid, and that is the mathematical model of the Earth. And then there's the anomaly product, which is a sea surface height in relation to a 20-year mean. But for all intents and purposes, the anomaly product is probably the better one to use. It really shows you some good information when it's cloudy. Now, as you can see, it's not very detailed. That's just because of the resolution of the data. But the simple rule of thumb with sea surface height anomaly is you look on the edges of anomalies, either low anomaly here or high anomaly here, and you see where the edges kind of change quickly. This would be a great little area to look at, and you can use that in combination with sea surface temperature, which I'll show you a little bit later. The next products are the chlorophyll or plankton. And for the west coast of the US, and for most places actually in the world, these are the good ones, right? We know that when the skies are clear, the ones that in SeaView that end in PLNK are the single satellite overpass shots, and those are always going to be the most detailed and always the best. From there, we move ourselves to the 5-day and the 10-day composite. Truthfully, we have a 10-day composite, but I wouldn't, if it's really been cloudy for a week or more, it's going to give you general information, but the 5-day composite is probably getting close to the cutoff where things are changing too fast and you're losing quite a bit of accuracy. And you can see that it's been cloudy for quite a bit of time here. So even the 5-day is cloudy. If you notice, a little side note, if you notice there's some kind of noise in this product here. What's happening is that the two satellites that carry the MODIS sensor, to Aqua and Terra, they're both, one was launched in 99 and one was launched in 2002. They're getting kind of old and they're going to be starting to decommission them. And so we're going to be putting more and more data from the VIRS sensor, VIRS, online. And we already have it online, but we're going to be putting more online for you as these satellites kind of reach their old age. And I think one of them might even drop out of orbit in the next 6 months, if not sooner. But that's what we're going to start seeing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 5-day composite and we're going to transition the input data to either Aqua data, which is in better shape than Terra, or VIRS. So these will, I'll probably do that next week. These will end up being a little bit cleaner, but that's your best choice when you're considering cloud-free help for plankton. Let's talk about ocean currents real quick. And we have a number of ocean current products now, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. If again, and this is just a little tidbit, you can download, when you download the list, especially via satellite phone, you don't have to worry what you have checked. It downloads the whole list no matter what, and that's a question I get frequently. So what you can do is download the whole list, and then you filter it after the fact as far as what you want to look at. And right now we're just going to look at ocean currents. So I'm going to download the HICOM currents, the GeoNOAA currents, and now we have these new R2FS currents. I'm going to download, they're updated 4 times a day. I'm going to download the one from 12 o'clock. I'll download an HF radar one. And we're going to look at them for the most part all together. The most accurate currents are the HF radar currents. Unfortunately, they are also very limited and spotty. So here are the currents we had from 1600 hours UTC for Oregon. You can see they're missing quite a bit. The one thing about the HF radar currents, the great thing about them is they're measured. They're created by radar equipment on the coast. They're usually operated by NOAA or universities. The problem with them is they're sort of spotty and they only go out about 100 kilometers offshore, sometimes farther. So they're great if you're working in this area, but unfortunately they're not covered. What it should look like really, here, I'll put one on from another time. So that's pretty typical coverage right there. That's from last year. And that's what we would normally expect. This coverage isn't always complete like this. So our next currents, and I'm going to turn these off over, and we're going to talk about this information panel too, without taking too much of Ron's time, are the HICOM currents. And these are from the hybrid coordinate ocean model, Navy model. Pretty decent. These used to be my go-to until we adopted the new currents, which I'll talk about in a second. And let's also put on the GeoNOAA currents. These are geostrophic currents. These are geostrophic currents. And if we find, let's see if I can find it. I'll show you what they're based off of. As you can see, they match very well to the sea surface height anomaly data. You can see the currents will spin around the high anomalies, spin around the low anomalies, because they're really literally derived from the sea surface height anomaly. These currents are really good until the conditions get a little bit windy or you throw in weather into the mix, and then they lose their accuracy. But generally speaking, in large scale, they're pretty accurate, which is why we've kept them for many years. Now, what we think are the better product now, are the real-time ocean forecasting currents. I downloaded the one from 12 o'clock GMT, and as you can see, they're very detailed. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, but these are the real-time ocean forecasting currents. And we have high hopes for these. I've had a couple boats out there that are testing them for me, and we've had pretty good feedback as far as their accuracy. And again, we just started as of a few days ago, updating these 4 times a day. And I'm not going to get into use of these data, of the different types of data products, but ocean currents, as most of you know, are pretty simple. You're looking for areas of convergence. And I will do a seminar on the whole oceanographic convergence concept. Anywhere where you see, and they don't have to be coming together straight on like you see here, but anywhere the arrows come together and show oceanographic convergence, or, and I don't know if I see any in this one, if you see them in opposite directions of each other, that's called shear, and that's also a good indication. And so when you see these arrows converging on top of, say, a sea surface temperature edge, that's going to give you an indication of a good fishing spot. And again, these are a cloud-free product. We have a variety of weather products. And I'm going to go to the North Pacific Weather, and we're going to download some different products. And I'm going to show them to you. I'm going to get 2 of these from the National Weather Service. Anybody who's my age or older probably knows of these. They're the old WEFACTS, old weather facts charts that NOAA still produces. And then we're going to get some grid weather, which grid is just a gridded binary format. It's just a type of weather that is all from the National Weather Service. And I'm going to download the 24-hour forecast for surface pressure. I am going to get the 24-hour winds from the Eastern Pacific. We'll get the 24-hour surface and 10-meter winds. And let's get some significant wave height too, just for fun. Now, when you download these, nothing, and you click the close button, only the images rasters will pop up. And I'm going to put both of these guys on the screen next to each other. Here's a little trick for you. You can overlay the grid weather on anything. These 2 are the National Weather Service kind of old-fashioned maps, but a lot of people still like them. I kind of do too. They're the old, what used to be called WEFACTS charts. But what we can do is we can put our surface pressure on top. And I'm going to choose that 24-hour one. I believe it was this one. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom in to my area. And so what we have now is we have the grid data on top of the NOAA, the National Weather Service charts. And you can see how they match up pretty well. I think one of these is 0 GMT and one's 12, so they don't match up perfectly, but it's a nice way to visualize the grid data, which is pressure, on top of the Weather Service data. And or the National Weather Service WEFACTS charts. And you don't have to do that, and I'll show you what you can put them on. And but you can also do the same thing with winds. The winds I downloaded, we'll do surface winds, and we'll zoom in again because they're very tight. But now we can see the surface winds on top of our WEFACTS chart. And note in SeaView, for anything currents, winds, whatever, if you touch the actual symbol, notice that on the right-hand side up here, it's going to give you that speed and direction of that wind, 23 knots, 178 degrees. Now, if you don't have anything open, and I'm going to close all my images now. Let's say I'm in South Africa and I don't have the NOAA charts, and I'm somewhere in South Africa, and I want to get the weather products for, I'm going to go the east part of South Africa. I'm going to go significant wave height here. I'm going to get some pressure, atmospheric pressure, and let's download some winds for the same area. Now you can overlay grid data, the grid weather, on anything. If there's an image open in South Africa, you can overlay it. But if there's nothing open and you just click this button to load the atmospheric pressure contours, and we're going to choose that South Africa area, it's going to automatically open up the base image if you have it for South Africa and overlay the atmospheric pressure on top of there. And then we can go ahead and we can put our winds on. Even if you download, if you loaded the winds first, it would open up that base image for you. And there's our winds. Again, going back to this information panel that I want to remind people of, is you can always turn off and on any data layer that you have just with a click of a mouse. The other type of data that we have as far as weather data is the National Weather Service text information. And those are easily retrieved as well. So we're going to go back to Oregon. And there's really another way that we can receive weather information, which I'll show you with the buoys in a minute. But this is the text. So we're going to say text files. I'm going to download some data for offshore of Oregon. And all these codes, by the way, are in our manual, and I'll show you that if I can switch screens real quick. I wanted just to take this opportunity to show I know people don't like to read manuals, but we have a pretty good manual, believe it or not. And all these codes are in the appendix here in the manual that you can see. So we've downloaded our text files, and if we click on File, Open Text File, we're going to get that offshore one. I have a lot here, but this is the one for Oregon, and it will bring up a little text box with the latest offshore waters forecast for Oregon. So that's another way. So these are just a few data sets that we find that people just don't use that often. I'm going to show you just a few quick mouse click functions We'll talk about color settings a little more detail. I'm going to show you those NOAA data buoys symbols that I don't think anybody uses. And then we'll quickly talk about the line drawing tool, the link cursor function. And we've already sort of talked about this information panel and layers, but I'll show that again too. We're going to go back and we're just going to get this HiCom model image to put on the screen. And I'll take this opportunity to talk about the color tool. I tend to load in blue to white. Almost everybody besides me uses a rainbow enhancement. If you're not using the color tool, especially for sea surface temperature, not for plankton necessarily, you don't want to change the plankton colors. It's a great tool. You can enhance the temperature between certain high and low temperatures. We're going to go between 61.0 and 52, and I'm going to put a rainbow enhancement on it. And we can save these settings as whatever we want. I'm just going to call it mark. And then we can always load all that. You can see I have a bunch of them saved here, but if I load mark again, it's going to look the same because I saved it. But you can even, if you save settings that you like, you can go into File and SeaView Preferences, and under SST Color, you can set any type of image, microwave, sea surface temperature, composite, the regulars, to whatever, to come up however you like them, either custom, a rainbow. I can always say come up as mark. I can choose mark in my little thing here that I saved. And so every time I open the sea surface temperature, it's going to come up with the color enhancement you see now. Just click OK, and that'll set it to use the color enhancement you like every time you open an image. So let's go back to the right mouse tool. This is when I click on the right mouse. A lot of people there's just a few little functions here, but almost nobody I talk to knows about it. Real simple one, fit image in the window. Let's say my window is this big, but I want to fit the whole thing in, it'll fit. If I want to see the actual native resolution of the data, that's reset zoom. I'm going to zoom in here. A quick drop symbol. I'm going to add a symbol here, and I'm going to use albacore. I'm going to say albacore. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a detailed description. I'm going to say, this is a symbol I added during presentation. Add entry. And I'm going to click OK. There's my symbol. And now if you notice, if I right mouse click on this symbol, I can click on View Symbol Description, and it's not only going to put the time that I dropped the symbol, the underlying data set that I used, it's also going to add whatever I type here in the latest entry, which I just did. So it's going to add, so you can keep adding to this entry as much as you want and essentially establish a database. And then once you have a set of symbols with all these little data markers or little database attached to them, you can do symbols and overlay, save symbols to file, we'll call it webinar, and then I can load this symbol set on any image. Symbols and overlay, load symbols in file, and I'll load webinar. I have a lot of these, and there it is. And again, if we click on that symbol, we right click on it, view symbol description, it is going to show us all that information that I've stored in there. And again, you can add to that as much as you want. You can also you can remove a symbol, so I can right click on this and remove it. You can also drop the navigation marker, and you can also do something called View Image Overlay List, which is going to be blank because we don't have any overlays loaded, but I'll show you that later. I don't know how many people use them, but from what when I talk to people, they have no idea we have this function. So I'm going to load a North Pacific overview image. Again, we'll just go with pretty today. And we have 3 different types of buoys that you can download, and I'll talk about them each. And I'll have to kind of figure out zoom and how to migrate between something, but you'll get what I'm saying in a second. So if I click on symbol template and I go download list, I'm going to download this one that says buoys RSS, buoys text, and buoys web. And there they are. And the first one I'm going to load this. I'm going to go symbols, load symbols from file. I'm going to find that US National Weather Service buoys web. And by the way, this is built for the West Coast, Atlantic Coast, and we're going to populate this with all of the NOAA buoys. But if you click on it, and this is where I'm going to have to do some fancy zoom stuff. But if I right click on this and I click View Symbol Description, and I'm going to switch screens on you now, just a minute. What comes up is the description of the buoy. Let me see if I can do this, and I'm going to do it in kind of real time, and hopefully you guys will see. So I can right click here, view symbol description, and it brings up that station's buoy information. Now this may be a bit to download over, say, a Globalstar phone or any satellite phone. So we can, here's the fancy Zoom thing again, and I'm going to now open up the one, load symbols from file. I'm going to get rid of that one, and I'm going to open up a new one called RSS. Looks the same, and now I'm going to take SeaView off the screen, stand by. I'm going to right click on one of these buoys and you'll see what happens. So I just right clicked and did view symbol description. Now it comes up with any buoy within 50 nautical miles of that other buoy with the information from that buoy. Kind of reduce the amount of data that's sent over if you're using a satellite phone, and kind of pare down what we're getting, and then each buoy you can do this for. The last one is called text. And if I right click on this buoy again, view symbol description, and then it's going to come up with a text, and I'll show you that in a second with the switching screens. So now hopefully you see this text. So this is the ultra reduced version. If you're on a slow satellite link, what you can download with just the text version of this buoy. So no matter which way you go, you get the information you want, and it does include weather information a little bit, because all the buoys have some weather information. The next function I want to talk to you about is our line drawing tool. We have a tool called the line drawing tool. One of the great things about it is we have pre-made lines. In this case, what I'll load is the US West Coast 200-mile EEZ, and it just overlays any line that you either draw or that's pre-built. We have a whole bunch of them. Here's the 12-mile EEZ, and you can see it right there. Let's say I want to change the color of the 12-mile one. We're going to change to white. So if I choose the 12-mile one and I hit the white and I do apply change, that'll change it to white. And we can load as many lines as we want to over our image. You can also draw lines. So I can draw a line. If I click draw line, it'll allow me to click and interactively draw a set of points, add symbols to them, save them to a name. It'll show the waypoints. In this case, it's showing the waypoints of all of the points used for the 12-mile line. But if you drew your own, you could get all your waypoints, have it print out as a text file. You can copy these, paste them in another file, do all sorts of things. But you can also add symbols. You can save your symbols. So there's a whole lot of functionality to this line tool that may be handy to you. Finally, I want to show you the link cursor tool. So let's bring up, take this image. So this is a function. If you have the same areas loaded, these are both Oregon area, we can link the cursor between these two screens. And again, it's a function that, it's one of these things I thought everybody used, but I found out that not a lot of people use it. So what I did is I tiled them horizontally. I'm going to choose my master, but that's the one I've clicked in where it's darker in the image window frame. And I'm going to click on my link cursor button. Let me drag this, and it's going to give you this window here. And you're just going to choose the secondary window, which is going to be this sea surface height anomaly window. And I'm going to choose that and click OK. And then I'm going to zoom in. And notice now you'll see it's going to be right over here, but you'll see the cursor. Wherever I move one cursor, it shows the value on the other cursor. And you can see the different values of the different data types up here in the information panel in the top right-hand corner. And notice if you zoom in, it'll zoom in. If you zoom way out, it'll zoom out. So the zoom tracks with the other image as well. You can even drop a symbol. We can use that right click. If I drop a symbol here, I'm going to say add symbol. I'll use my albacore. And it's going to ask me, would you like to apply that symbol on the other image? And I say yes. And now we have two symbols in the exact same place. You can even move a symbol around. Let's say, I really like it down here in the warmer water. It's going to move that symbol here. Or if I say, hey, gosh, where is that? Remember that Mark talked about right between the high and the low anomalies? And is that near an edge? Well, it's on this, at least in this HICOM image, it's near kind of a warm water spot, a little edge here, but it's also in the area where the sea surface height anomaly transitions from a high to a low. So that allows you to see things kind of on both screens at the same time and look at the conditions at the same time in the same place. So another example on how to use the link cursor tool is to compare, say, a surface temperature image. This is HICOM surface temperature to a subsurface temperature image. This is the 50-meter subsurface temperature. And I've enhanced them both to the maximum minimum temperature at that depth, roughly. So along the coast here, you can see it's about 52, and it gets up to about 64 up here, right off the Columbia River at the surface. And the coldest water here is about 45, a little bit above 45 along the coast, and then 57.5 for almost 58 down in the southwest, but at 50 meters. And we can use the link cursor tool to see the temperature at each pixel at each depth. So if I click on my main window here being the primary, which is the surface temperature, and I click the link cursor tool, and I select my secondary image as the 50-meter subsurface temperature image. And then we'll zoom back in. Notice it zooms simultaneously for both images when I do this. And now, when I move my cursor around, you'll see the matching cursor, a linked cursor over on the right-hand side that shows at the surface, this temperature here is 64.2. Look in the information panel top right here. So it shows 64.2 and 47.3 at 50 meters. And notice that here it shows 60.8, but cold 45.6 at 50 meters. Down here, it's not as dramatic, 62.7 and 55.58 at 50 meters. Now, this doesn't necessarily let us compare the images at the same temperature enhancement. So let's enhance them the same. So I'm going to click on my color settings tool again. And let's go from, say, 47.0 to, let's do 66.0. And we'll save that. And we'll call it link for link cursor tool. Okay. Then I'll click on this image, and I will load that saved color settings file link. And now you can see the dramatic difference visually of the temperatures between surface on the left side and 50-meter depth on the right side. Noticing it's very warm along the coast here, or relatively warm, 64 degrees, but also very cold at depth. But as you can see, in the upwelling areas where there's heavy upwelling going on, the difference is not as dramatic. It's 54.0 degrees at the surface and 47.6 at depth. But it allows you to move your cursor around with that link cursor tool and explore what the temperature difference is at between surface and, say, in this example, 50 meters. For example, here, the thermocline will be much sharper because I'm changing in 50 meters from 64 degrees to 47. So it's going to be a sharper thermocline than down here, where I'm changing from 62 degrees to 55. So the thermocline in the 50-meter zone is much weaker down here, and that's how you can get a good idea of thermocline. But again, one good example of how to use that link cursor tool to compare images side by side. If you notice, number one, whenever we touch any sort of symbol like a wind vector, a wind barb, or an arrow vector, it'll show the speed and direction up on here. So you can see that it'll show the depth. But more importantly, it allows us to turn off and on any of these layers. The symbol later, we're just going to keep the bathymetry on at this point. So now the bathymetry is on, and we just see the bathymetry information. And you can click on and off for whatever piece of information you want to see real easily on this right-hand panel. And the reason I show this is, again, it's one of those aspects of SeaView that people never seem to know about when I talk to them about it. So that's what I wanted to present. We also now have our SeaView mobile app. It's out on Android. It will be out on Apple iPhone soon, I promise. Our app does not have all the functionality of SeaView desktop, but it has sea surface temperature, all the sea surface temperature products, the currents, sea surface height anomaly, all the chlorophyll products, the plankton products, range and bearing. You can even, in the app, which you can't do in SeaView desktop, you can display the imagery with a percentage of transparency to see the bathymetry underneath your image. It's pretty cool. The great thing about it is it's really inexpensive. It's $100 to $159 if you don't want ads per year. And we're even offering a $50 discount if you buy the app, if you sign up for the app and then sign up for the SeaView desktop service, you get $50 off your next service. So effectively, it's $50 a year to have SeaView on your phone or your tablet. And I know there's a bunch of you Apple users, and I promise we're pounding away. We'll get that out soon. And with that, I'm going to end. So the things what I'd like to hear back from everybody is shoot me an email and tell me what you'd like to see next, whether it's the basics of SeaView, all the different data types, and kind of dig into the different data, salinity, mixed layer depth I didn't talk about, the subsurface temperature. I can dig in all the data types. We can talk about, we have a data merge function, that another function that people don't use very often, which I can explain. So there's a whole lot of stuff, strategies and picking spots. We can go over that. Another thing I'd like feedback for, shoot me an email, give us a call, is what's a function, or if you know of a data set that we don't have, that'd be really cool to have in SeaView. So let us know. Here's all my information. I think most of you know this. The YouTube channel, there's the link right there. That will be on the video when it's, that's where the video will be placed when it's done of this. But you can always email me and we can send you that link right there. You can take a picture of it, but just let us know and we can email you the link to our YouTube channel. And then my last one, and Ron's going to talk about this, is we're going to try something different this year and use OCENS One Message tool, where you could, even from your boat, send me the equivalent of a WhatsApp message or a text message instantaneously. I can answer your questions almost instantaneously if I'm in front of my computer, and it's super cheap, cheap to free actually. And with that, I am going to hand things over to Ron.
Again, thank you very much, Mark, for the opportunity to speak to the audience. First, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ron Wright. I'm the Director of Commercial and Government Sales for OCENS. My background is I owned a marine electronics shop for years and got involved with Globalstar. So many of you guys I've touched in the past. I was a direct sales representative for Globalstar, and then I went on to work with the company that created the Zoleo. So we'll talk a little bit about those kinds of things. So I'm going to spend some time talking about how to get this data. So a lot of things have changed, and this is still a pretty fluid situation that's compounded now with the Ukraine crisis and what's available in the supply chain. For many of you guys, I know you still are using Globalstar, and I have some updated information to discuss on that. But the core is we're going to talk about the 5 networks that are available for data. And I've added Globalstar and Starlink here to discuss it, but both of those really aren't quite ready for prime time. And so I'll get into that with more detail. But let's lead with Iridium. So for most of you, you know, Iridium has 66 satellites that provides, it's a low Earth network that provides the coverage. They're the only ones that provide the coverage around the world. Their method of connectivity allows satellite calls and data to be relayed from the boat to a satellite, and then it can jump satellites through their network of interconnectivity down to their Earth station. Now they have the primary gateway is in Tempe, Arizona, but they do have geographically diverse gateways for access to the service. And that's really kind of important, especially in this low Earth stuff. For those of you that have gone through the wildfires and things, gateways have been impacted by that. So having multiple gateways is pretty important. This constellation was replaced in 2019. Their intent was to cover the legacy devices that are out there, but along with that, they brought a lot of new services to the forefront. And then over the last 2 years, the connectivity devices have been developed by other manufacturers. So this kind of steps through the product suite that's available through Iridium. So you've got the narrow-banded handsets that are 2.4K. So for those of you that are familiar with You've Got Mail and the good old days of dial-up, those were about 28K. So you can see that 2.4K and the amount of information that you've been able to get over those devices is still pretty impressive, but it's taken an awful lot of work to make that data efficiently available. And there's just limitations now that can be avoided by taking the next step. All of these devices also, the legacy devices used a dial-up connection, and so that created some challenges. But from this slide, you can see how these new Iridium products are positioned based on their data speed, starting with the legacy handsets on the left and progressing nearly to home internet speeds on the right. As most of you know, satellite internet has a balance of speed and hardware cost. It should be noted that larger antennas are required for the higher data speeds, so you want to consider how that might complicate your installation. All of these are omnidirectional type antennas. There are no moving parts. So it's more a matter of just positioning them so that they have a good view of the sky. For many, I think the Certus 100 may be the best fit for you, those of you that have global stars and legacy Iridiums. The Certus 100 is 40 times faster than the Iridium legacy handsets. And it avoids the dial-up connection that the legacy equipment required. That's really no longer an easy way to connect. So I'm going to start out with the big one. So the Iridium Certus 700, there are several manufacturers. The antennas vary a little bit, but typically are about 14 inches in diameter, and all of them are under about 11 inches tall. They are connected to a below decks unit using a single coax and run on 12 or 24 volts. They all offer a connection. I believe all of them offer a connection for a POTS telephone line. I guess I should double check that. And then they provide a LAN connection directly to the computer. We offer an additional device called the Sidekick, and I'll get into more details, but that allows the radiation of Wi-Fi and a really simple firewall to allow access to the marine services that you've been using without allowing other data to pass through. So these terminals run about $6,500 to $8,000. Service plans start at $135. The largest devices provide 3 voice lines. You pay by the minute for voice, and then data varies all the way up to $15.75 a megabyte, and then all the way down to 64 cents a megabyte, depending on the plan you choose. We'll get into more details. So this device provides data speeds of 704K. So when you compare that to 2.4, you can imagine just how much faster you can get this stuff. Now your home connection is typically 1 or more megabytes. So that would be 1000K. But for all intents and purposes, you can pretty much do anything that you could do on your home internet, but you're paying for it. It's a metered connection. Next up is the Iridium Certus 200. So this provides data speeds at 176 kbps, and service starts at $89 a month. It's in a better price point at $4,500, and the antenna is just slightly larger than the legacy Iridium or Globalstar antenna you probably have on board today. The antenna is 5 by 7. So just like the Certus 700, there's a single coax that goes to the below decks unit. It does provide a standard telephone jack for a standard plain old telephone, cordless handsets included. And then you have a kind of a broad range of data solutions. But again, $89 a month starts the clock. And then finally, this is really my favorite. This Certus 100, if this had been around 5 years ago, I don't think most of you would have what you have on your boats today. This mounts like a regular VHF. It's real slim. It's a low profile unit with a gimbal mount or a flesh kit's available. It has a built-in handset. It includes an active antenna. So for many of you, the guys, you'll find that running your antenna was a critical piece. Cable length was a major concern. It's no longer a problem with this one. That active antenna will allow you to run that cable over 200 meters. So this has data speeds of 88 kilobytes down and 22K up. That's still plenty fast to get any of the marine products in moments that we've discussed. So, and the nice part is that speed does help kind of slow down a data runaway should somebody make a mistake. At least you can't use it quite as fast, but you can use up 10 megabytes in short order if you're not careful. And that's again, we'll talk a little bit more about the Sidekick. So we offer a bundle with our Sidekick. The entire bundle, this includes a 10-meter cable, 3-foot DC power cable, and the Sidekick, so just under $4,000, $3,977. And similar prices. Again, this device has 2 voice lines built in, so you can talk on the phone and still do data at the very same time. Big step up from the legacy hardware that's out there. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about the legacy stuff. So for Iridium, the Iridium 9555, the Iridium Extreme, the Iridium Go, and the Larstron LT3100, which looks exactly like the 4100 we were just looking at, are still available. And so we can talk a little bit more about those plans. Again, those devices do use a standard dial-up connection to connect. So by connecting them to the sidekick that we'll discuss, or that you see in this image in the next slide, that creates the dial-up connection, and then you connect via Wi-Fi. So it really simplifies things. And prices really range on these devices. And actually on the next slides, we'll kind of go through the bundles. The Iridium Go being the least expensive at under $800, and all the way up to the Larstron 3100, which includes an active antenna and is about $3,200. And service starts at about $60 a month. So just for comparison, I put a few of these products in here just to kind of put the cost together, and especially for you, those of you that have the Globalstar. I really wanted to kind of say that, the Globalstar has been a great value for quite a while. They offered unlimited data plans. Their data speeds were 4 times faster. But the day has kind of come to talk about another solution. So in comparison, the Iridium Extreme bundle, which includes the phone, a docking kit, a 10-meter cable, the high-performance marine antenna, and our Sidekick Pro is $25.29 and available today. The next step down is the Iridium 9555. The main difference between this is this one is not waterproof, and it does not include a GPS or GPS tracking options. As far as the phone and data, the voice and data services, they're identical. In this bundle, we have a real simple mount that allows you to connect to an external antenna, and that bundle is $15.79. Next is the Iridium Go, and I want to let you guys know this has been a popular product, but it's been unavailable for weeks due to the Ukrainian crisis. And now we've got about half a dozen coming into the office next week, and not all of them are spoken for yet. So anybody that's interested and is looking for the most cost-effective next step over the Globalstar, this is it. The Iridium Go is unique because it does offer a special unlimited data plan that's not available for the other handsets. So that's what makes it the most popular for folks trying to use the SeaView software over this. We offer the Iridium Go in a special 3-month prepaid unlimited data bundle for $1,339, and then you can add the premium mounting kit and external antenna for a total of $1,824. So this includes 3 months of unlimited data, buys down the price of the Iridium Go, and includes all the stuff you need to get it working on the boat. And really, this is really kind of the least expensive solution to step up from your Globalstars. Now let's get into this. And we also offer rentals, depending on the time of what you need and how long you need it. Rentals are always a challenge. Everybody wants them at the same time. So please reach out and let me know when you need it, and we'll see what we can do to accommodate that. We do offer rentals of the Iridium 9575, 9555, Iridium Go, and the 9505. As well, it should be mentioned that we also offer, we do have a couple of rental Fleet Ones, although I think they're already spoken for this season, but let me know. So next, let's get into the Inmarsat product. So unlike the Iridium, Inmarsat is a geostationary satellite. So there's 3 birds that carry the traffic. And so you can tell by these ovals, their coverage maps. So most people work off I believe it's the F1 bird. And you can see the coverage is pretty good. So for most guys that are talking, this is going to cover where you go. And it is overlapped by the other satellite. And there's nothing special you have to do to switch between the stations. It obviously doesn't cover the poles yet. So you'll notice the coverage map shown here. I'll just point out there's a light blue and then the green coverage. So the light blue coverage includes the green coverage and represents their global plan. The green coverage shows the available coastal plans. So the coastal plans have gotten a lot of press recently because they're very cost effective and they allow unlimited use, although they do throttle your connection. The challenge is for commercial tuna fishermen, it ends at about 200 miles offshore. And I have a KML file I can show you here on Google Earth. If anybody needs to know kind of where that boundary is, we can drill into it after the show. The device is pretty inexpensive. The antenna is about 15 inches in diameter, about 15 inches tall. So it does take a little more consideration about the way you mount it. And it is a stabilized antenna, meaning there's a dish inside that's powered by motors, and like your autopilot, has a fluxgate compass. So installation is really important that it's not close to something else magnetic, such as a winch, or blocked partially by being next to the life raft or your running lights, things like that. So you do have to make some extra considerations. And again, it's physically a little bit bigger, but it's pretty cost effective at $28.95 for the terminal. It's pretty affordable. The offshore plans, for anybody that's interested, do start out. I want to say it's there is a $60 plan that pay as you go. And anybody that wants to get deeper into the plans, we can talk about it. As a general rule of thumb, data runs between 11 and $7 a megabyte. Here's a close-up just to compare. So the purple that you see here shows the offshore coverage. So for some people, this, and depending on what the fishery does, this may be a solution. I have a lot of customers that actually use this in complementary use with their other offshore solutions. So you can mix and match. So while you're within the 200 miles, you've got this unlimited data connection, and you can do an awful lot with it at 150K. But once you go beyond that line, it's $22 a megabyte on that plan. So you have to use some care, and they don't allow an easy switch back and forth. I know many people are probably wondering that. So next, for the really big data users, I put the KVH V30 in here. So KVH's coverage covers most of the fishing grounds. It uses the KU band, so it's a little more susceptible to weather fade, heavy rainstorms and things like that. And the satellite is much farther away. So the global, just for comparison, the Iridium satellites are about 450 miles away from the Earth, doing about 17,000 miles an hour. Global Star is about 850 miles above the Earth. And this bird is 22,000 miles away. So that's where your latency comes from. But because it is a much bigger satellite and a much bigger satellite dish, you are able to get a much higher throughput. This is the fastest data service that I'm going to discuss today, and it's about 8 times faster than the Iridium Certus 700 for comparison. Data speed is now 6,000 or 6 megs down and 2 megs up. This is a great choice for heavy data users. This is for the guy that says, look, I just want to be able to have internet wherever I'm at. So if you're an owner operator, and the service plans, they have an unlimited plan that starts at $159 a month. Now it does throttle after a certain threshold of data use, but it's always on, and it's still much faster than any of the other solutions. It's closer to a Fleet 1 speed at its lowest speeds. So the terminal is certainly more expensive. You really kind of pay up front. So you pay about $11,000 for the hardware, but your data speeds are exceptional, and your overages are much cheaper. So where we were talking about $7 to $12 a megabyte, now we're talking 99 cents a megabyte or less. So for those of you that are really looking for, that heavy duty, and the antenna, the dome on this is about 15 by 15 as well. So it's the same size as a Fleet 1 antenna, same considerations as well, but data speeds, really to do whatever you want, and really without limits. So now let's get into these other two. So the next two networks I'm going to talk about, I added them really for common questions because there's a lot to talk to, and Globalstar has been very fluid over the last 6 months. So, even 3 months ago, I would have told you a different story than I'm going to tell you today. So first and foremost, Globalstar is shifting to a more Internet of Things, an IoT focus. And so they've dramatically reduced the coverage of their voice and two-way data solutions. They have discontinued voice and data service in Alaska by closing the Wasilla Gateway. They've reduced coverage at the equator by relocating their gateway there. And I just learned this last week, they turned off the Clifton, Texas gateway, which was the backup to the Calgary, Canada one. What this really means is for users down in California and Southern Oregon, you're going to experience a substantial decline in the offshore performance of your phones. I don't know how bad it is yet because nobody's really communicated it, but for anybody that's going there, I would love to get more information about that. I still stay in close contact with Globalstar and really don't want to say anything derogatory, but we really have to talk about the facts. So Globalstar is only selling used phones to their existing customers. If you called them today, they don't want you to buy their services. And that is not the way it's intended anymore. They are going to continue to support the subscribers they have. They are not turning off the data service, but they are no longer supporting it. What that really means is the XGate software that people have been downloading to get by and use the 9600 is no longer available. So it's a little more challenging to get that thing running. For those of you that used the direct connection method, that really ended once you switched to Windows 7 or higher or newer. The dial-up connection doesn't work reliably. I have seen a few Windows 7 computers work, but the vast majority paid a fortune to a computer guy to try and get it working. It worked one or two times and then failed. So I just don't recommend it. We do have a solution that will work with the Globalstar, and I'll talk about that. But if you've got a Globalstar, it's really time to start talking about a change. And again, this has changed dramatically just in the last 3 months. So I put these are the 3 models that Globalstar will still active. I'm not sure Globalstar can activate a GSP 2900 anymore. I know they can't activate any of the other legacy ones, so this may not even be possible. For those of you that don't have active phones, I believe you can contact Globalstar and they may offer service, but they will warn you that they don't have any accessories available anymore. So they really, they're not looking to add additional subscribers. They're trying to honor those that still have the service. And it is 4 times faster than an Iridium legacy. So Globalstar's data speed was 9.6K. They did come with a US phone number, which was really kind of handy. And the voice quality was excellent. Again, their voice channel was wider than the Iridium's. Although I have to say the Certus is getting much closer to the Iridium speeds. But both Fleet Ones and the Iridium handsets are considered international calls. So there's some things to be talked about there. I don't want to, for the sake of time, I won't dig deep unless you guys have some questions. Feel free to use the chat if you want, and then we can open the microphones after the call here. So finally, I'll talk a little bit about Starlink. This comes up an awful lot. And so I have to say Starlink's not ready for commercial service yet. I don't know how many of you have seen this. This picture on the left, this is a and I've seen this probably 6 or 7 times from my backyard. This is what it looks like when they first launch all the satellites and they start spreading them out over their network. So Starlink currently offers an unlimited data speed of about 100 megabytes for $99 a month. You buy the dish for $500. It's stabilized. Now, a couple of things to point out. First of all, like a Tesla, Globalstar has cut everybody else out of this conversation. So there's not a lot to help support those that install and provide these services. So you may find that this is kind of going to be a do-it-yourself solution, even when it is finally commercially available. Second, they have started to offer an RV solution, but everything I have seen so far indicates that they have a hard cutoff as soon as you go offshore and won't work at all. So, but it is a great example of ingenuity and technology that's coming down the pipe that's going to keep the rest of the vendors in check when it comes to providing services. But I don't think that Starlink's going to be a commercially available service for at least another year, if not 2. So, but I want to speak to it. That way, it's no super secret. And if anybody wants to talk a little bit more, I do know several people that have Starlink and swear by it for their home use, although they will say that it is still, they would be concerned if they had to depend on it. Great speeds, but again, the title of their program is called Better Than Nothing. And so that really should tell you something. It's just not something to put your trust in yet. So I have a second, this is another slide. This is really interesting. This kind of represents all those satellites going. Again, these things are moving around the world, generally at about 17,000 miles an hour. The more users they bring, the more they're going to have to split the bandwidth. And they've already made the news several times with the, with drops in their service level. Pretty amazing stuff. I think Elon Musk is a pretty crazy guy. And I think we're all paying attention to him. There are several other competitors that are kind of on the horizon that may be coming out. But the bottom line is, Iridium and Inmarsat are very well positioned and could be more competitive if market pressure comes to bear. So, it's great to keep an eye on these solutions, but you're really not going down the wrong path to look at the solutions that are available. These guys still have a major learning curve and still have a lot to do before they're going to be able to offer commercial service. So currently they have just over 2,000 satellites in the sky, and they need about 4,400 to complete their currently expressed constellation. So this kind of brings me to the ocean services. We have some value-added services that we add that help get the most out of this limited connection. So if you'll indulge me a little bit, I'll talk a little bit about our projects, and specifically, I want to talk more about the Sidekick, because this is really the key to keeping your legacy stuff running. So for those of you that have seen the Globalstar 9600, it's very similar. This box is 2x2 by just less than 1 inch tall. It's a mini computer that provides the dial-up connection, the Wi-Fi connection to simplify the way you connect. And then it has a very simple firewall that allows the basic services to get through. It doesn't allow DNS whitelist and some of the other crazy stuff. It keeps it simple. But the idea behind this is now anybody that's on the boat can connect via Wi-Fi and use services like our One Message or One Mail to stay in touch with home, and you don't have to worry about them getting in and absorbing a ton of your data available. It also still allows you to get at these services over that 2.4K pipe without something else clogging it. And this was always a problem with the dial-up, the direct connect dial-up connections on when trying to get SeaView. A lot of times you'd connect, but you'd struggle to keep that connection because other things would help themselves to that connection before your SeaView download was completed. It's a very inexpensive device. It's $149. It has an external antenna. It includes an external antenna, but it does have a jack. So if you wanted to extend or reposition that, you certainly could. It does not have a battery built into it. It does have to be powered. In this particular picture, you'll see right next to these yellow ports, there's a little micro USB connection. Typically you're hooking this to the computer, so you're going to hook that to one of the USB ports on your computer to provide power. On the Globalstar 9600, one of the most common failures was the lithium battery that was built into that device, because most people continuously powered it anyway, and that battery would swell and break the board inside. So by not having to deal with a battery, you're much better off. And of course, I do have people that use small portable battery packs. Any of those little small port-to-power devices with a USB port will power this for quite some time. So I'll just kind of go through our list of products. So we have several communication tools. I'll start with OCENS Mail. OCENS Mail is a dedicated optimized email address with a full-featured email engine that's intended for PC and Mac users. And it would be the best solution for getting SeaView data, but by the email method over a Globalstar or a legacy Iridium handset. So we're out of time, and I'm not going to get too deep on how to do that, but for anybody that wants to stay on the line, if we want to walk through a little bit of that, I'm happy to cover it. And if there's enough interest, I'm certainly happy to do a separate webinar that talks just about how to do that with the legacy equipment. But this allows you to save time, and it does have additional filters to prevent large emails from clogging your inbox, and additional tools to kind of deal with give you more control over a satellite connection. Sorry, guys. So the next step is One Mail. So One Mail, to my knowledge, I believe we're the only ones that can offer this. So One Mail allows you to use your shoreside email account. This could be a Microsoft Exchange email. This could be a Gmail. It could be an Outlook 365 email, and still use that email account while you're at sea over these very, very slow connections. So you can actually set up to 3 email accounts in the One Mail. It is an app that runs on Android and iOS. It does not work on a PC because of the additional security that smartphones offer. We're able to manage the 2-stage authentication required to allow you to access your email while you're offshore. It should be said that the native email clients, that even though you have the data speed to use those native email clients on your PC, it's not recommended over any of these metered connections, except maybe perhaps the KVH. So One Mail is a great tool to do that. It leaves the message on the server so you don't lose it. It does mark it as read, but it does give you the ability to keep doing business over your standard shore accounts. And it's spectacular over the Iridium Go. I have to say, it's just super easy to use. Next is One Message. One Message, I'm trying to get the word out to everybody. It's a very, very simple text messaging app. It's app to app, so both the sender and the receiver has to have One Message, but it's free. It's free to use for even over 1x cellular or standard Wi-Fi connection. So you can carry it with you, whether you're on the boat or you get off the boat. But what you have the ability to do is compose or read your messages. And when you're ready or when the time is right, you can connect to the server and transfer all your messages to and fro. It also allows you to attach pictures, and it has an automatic image reducer that reduces any image to about 15K. And that optimization still makes it a very useful resolution. So if you had to take a picture of a form or out of a service manual, or what you're trying to identify a part for repair, one message is free. It's easy to use, and one message is now being monitored both by SeaView and by OCENS as a great way to stay in touch with us instead of trying to be on hold or deal with your email. So just really a great tool. Along with that, we do have a weather product that's available just for simple weather prediction that can be added. It's an option that can be added to that app. And then finally, we do have an Oceans Web compression tool that allows you to get the most out of your bandwidth. You still can't do much over the legacy equipment, but it does allow you to get very lean communications over a lot of these other faster connections without using up all your data. And then we do offer SnapTrack. SnapTrack is generally it's intended for the folks that are on shore or the higher data speed connections, but it does allow you to share your positions with a group. It's a private page, and you even have the ability to send broadcast messages over through a group. You can select a group of positions and users, and then send a broadcast message out to those folks. So really handy tool. Really handy as well if you want to keep track. If you're a shore-based owner and you want to keep track of your captain, this is a great way to allow him to share a position. It's compatible with most of the messengers out there, so it's compatible with Zolios and InReaches, and you can even just email a position in and it will put it on the track. So if you're trying to keep track of something, or if you want to just log your journey, SnapTrack's a great choice. So in summary, a lot has changed in the industry over the last couple of tumultuous years. Smaller, easier to use devices will help expand your access to more information. They're more reliable than ever and more compatible with today's internet by eliminating that dial-up connection. And it's come a long ways, and the price point is actually down there in the, near those Globalstar prices. So it's really worth considering the upgrade. For legacy users, you should start early this season to make sure that you can get the equipment. Supply chain challenges continue to plague us. And it could be as simple as, yeah, we can get the hardware, but we can't get the mount for the antenna. There's some surprises. So, start as early as you can. As early as you can. And we will continue to support those products the best we can. Even you Globalstar users, I'm here to try and help you keep that thing going. But beware that it has changed a lot drastically over the last 6 months. And I really don't know how much longer. Globalstar has a bit of a history of making pretty quick changes that can have drastic impacts. And should that happen in the middle of the season, that could put you in a real bind, especially now that supply chain is a challenge. So just keep that in mind. All right, that's it for me as far as the core of this. If anybody wants to drill into any of the other details, I'm happy to open the microphone or look at the chat and get farther in. Currently my one message screen name is Ron Wright. We will put together a more company-wide screen name coming up in the future. But for anybody that needs anything, I monitor that regularly. So it's a great way to get in touch with me. I highly recommend everybody go ahead and download One Message and get it set up. Again, it works over your standard cellular connection and Wi-Fi, as well as any of these other tools, especially when they're connected to our Sidekick. It should also be noted the simple firewall that's built into the Sidekick is already has a quick setting. It takes about 3 minutes to add the SeaView firewall exception to allow either direct connect or email delivery methods of the SeaView stuff.
Hey, Ron, I want to tack on a couple things.
Okay.
It's a good time. I'll start with Globalstar first. Obviously, I've talked to some people before about this, but if you have a Globalstar and everything worked last year, it should, at least for right now, work. What we recommend is give myself or Linda a call, and we'll activate your service for free for a couple, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it takes. And you test it like crazy before you go out, make sure everything works. And if it doesn't, we'll try to work with you. But, there's only so many things we can do, but it still does. Regarding the Iridium legacy equipment, we shy away from most of the 2.4 kilobit stuff just because our data sizes are, we're working with the real stuff, the real data, the higher resolution stuff. So our average file size is probably 40, 50K, but over 2.4 kilobits, that's still a long time, even for free. And it probably will work over an email link, but over direct connection, there's just too many failure points. It just, the connection dies and whatnot. So we don't recommend it. I've been trying for years to get Iridium Go in this office just to test it out to see, but like Ron said, they've been hard to get. And another company promised us one for years. We never got it. So I'm going to try to bug around to see if I can get one for testing. We will test it with Iridium Go and see if how much we can transfer via email, but it's not what we recommend, but we'll at least test it here on our end. Finally, the Sidekick, to date, we found that it's probably the most bulletproof firewall. We've had some problems with the optimizer and some other of these firewalls that allow data leaks, and we think we got them solved, so it's not a problem, but it took a while to work with the optimizer and get the configuration settings so they work. But with the Sidekick, we don't have to do anything, and it works right away. And so that's one of the reasons we're partnering more closely with Ron and OCENS, is because the Sidekick is easier to use, and it doesn't allow that data, that unwanted data through. So if you have to make a choice in that direction, that's our recommendation. Is the Sidekick for sure. And go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick one. So it should be mentioned, that the Sidekick is compatible both with the small dial-up connections and these bigger data solutions. Right. Everybody, it's very future-proof, if you will.
Right. Yeah, and we hopefully will be up on one message in a couple of 3 days. So if anybody gets set up, shoot me a text or a message, and we can start communicating almost in real time that way, which would be pretty cool. So we're excited about that. And that's all from my end. So I really thank everybody for sticking around and joining us.